I didn't have a proper experience on how to taste wine or how to, let's say, taste the wine properly, understanding what's in the glass and how to communicate wine in a way a little bit more accessible, and started to understand this language. It's almost like when you want to play an instrument, you need to understand how does it work, the notes and the pentagram. And it's wine, it's almost in the same way. You need to understand that language to really feel that.
Welcome to this special Clubhouse session of the Italian Wine Podcast. Listen in as members of the Italian wine community engage in fascinating conversations about contemporary wine topics. If you enjoyed the show, please consider donating through ItalianWinePodcast.com, and remember to subscribe and rate the Italian Wine Podcast wherever you get your pods.
Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Clubhouse Ambassadors Corner on the Italian Wine Podcast. My name is Rosa, and I'm delighted to guide you through today's session. For those of you who are new to the show, here's a quick reminder. The Ambassadors Corner is a space where the Italian wine ambassadors, certified by the Vinitaly International Academy, have the chance to interview their favorite producers. It's a unique format that gives our ambassadors full freedom to ask any questions they like. This is a live session that is being recorded and is released later on the Italian Wine Podcast to reach more listeners, and especially for those who cannot participate due to time zone differences. If you'd like to listen live next time and even ask your own questions in the chat here, just find the Italian Wine Room on the Clubhouse app. We announce upcoming sessions regularly on our Instagram, so be sure to follow us. Now, let me introduce today's guest host, Mihai Popescu, a fellow Italian wine ambassador based in Canada. Mihai is a seasoned wine professional with a strong focus on helping producers successfully enter and grow in the Canadian market. He holds the prestigious WSET Diploma, and he is an international wine judge and is highly active in the global wine trade. Mihai supports wineries with strategic brand positioning, market access, and distribution solutions, while also curating professional tastings and attending key trade shows. Through his work, he combines in-market expertise with digital influence, actively promoting Italian wines to a wide audience of wine lovers and professionals via social media and content creation. Today, he'll be speaking with Carlotta Salvini from the Consorzio del Vino Brunello di Montalcino. So welcome, Mihai and Carlotta. We are very happy to have you here today.
Hello, Rosa. Thank you for this opportunity. I was really looking forward to talk to Carlotta and to you, and I think it's going to be an interesting episode.
Thank you, Mihai, and thank you, Rosa, for having me. Such a great pleasure to share a little bit of my experience and my work at the Consorzio Brunello di Montalcino.
And thank you both for finding time today to have this conversation with us. And first of all, before we move on to your interview, Mihai, let me begin with our 3 ritual questions. First of all, please tell me, how did you discover the wines of Consorzio del Vino Brunello di Montalcino?
So, first of all, in 2016, I think it was my first contact with the Brunello di Montalcino wines. I attended a trade show here in Montreal where I had the chance to taste different Brunellos from different producers. And I was really impressed by their elegance, their complexity, potential to age. So then the more I studied wines, I got more advanced into my wine studies and my wine career. And I realized that these wines are among the top wines of the world. And for me, I think we should talk more about it. We should promote them more. And they have such great potential. And I feel like I really wanted to talk about it and to get the chance to talk to Carlotta about it, because it's such interesting wines, and I would really want to see her perspective on the Brunellos and the Rosso di Montalcino.
Now please tell us, why did you select Carlotta as your featured guest?
So, as we all know, the Consorzio Brunello di Montalcino is a VIA supporter for our Vinitaly International Wine Academy. And last year I had the opportunity and privilege, I would say, to attend Benvenuto Brunello, which Carlotta's probably going to talk a bit more. It's an annual event where you can taste en primeur Brunellos and Rossos. and I was really impressed by the quality of the event, the communication, the marketing. And during this time that I spent there, I got the chance to meet Carlotta and to see how much of a great wine professional she is. Also, she's a fellow WSET Diploma alumni, so I think that creates a bond between us. And yeah, we all know how hard that those exams are. So once you get in that range, I know it creates connections. And also, I really, really enjoyed her work at the Benvenuto Brunello, and I'm sure she does a great job with everything she's involved.
And at last, please tell us what are the learning objectives that we should expect from this interview today?
I think what I would like to bring to the listeners from this interview is understanding a bit the wines of Montalcino, the Rosso, the difference between the Rosso and the Brunello, and understand a bit the roles of the Consorzio and the marketing programs they have. Also, to talk about a bit the trends in the global markets and how they position themselves. And for sure, I'm really interested in their educational initiatives because I find that it's very important to spread the knowledge about these amazing wines.
Okay, thank you. I think that is going to be a very interesting conversation, both for wine lovers and also for the whole Italian wine professional community. So thank you. It's time for me to mute myself. Now I'm turning the mic to you, Mihai.
Hi, Carlotta. Thank you for taking your time and joining us today. I know we're very busy wine professionals, but I think it's a great opportunity to discover the wines and the Consorzio and your role at Brunello di Montalcino. So I will start with something that I'm curious about, and it's something maybe the listeners would like to learn. How did you get into the wine world, and how did you get your current role at the Consorzio?
Thank you, Mihai. Yeah, let's start from the beginning. I would say that I started to work in the wine industry out of curiosity, first of all. And I would say that what began as a personal interest evolved into a profession. And first of all, for me, is also a passion overall. Anyway, despite I work in marketing and communication, I have technical background because I hold a master's degree in agronomy with a specialization in agroengineering and then a degree in viticulture and enology. And as you mentioned, later I completed the WSET Diploma in the 2024. And I worked in the direct sales before my experience at the consortium. I was the hospitality and direct to consumer manager at a winery in the Chianti Classico region, Felsina. So first started there in the 2015. And at the same time, I was attending a sommelier course with the FISAR Association because I really developed a deep interest in wine and in wine tasting because after my background in agronomy and viticulture, I really wanted to understand much better what's beyond the label. I didn't have a proper experience on how to taste wine or how to, let's say, taste the wine properly, understanding what's in the glass and how to communicate wine in a way a little bit more accessible, and started to understand this language. It's almost like when you want to play an instrument, you need to understand how does it work, the notes and the pentagram. And it's wine, it's almost in the same way. You need to understand that language to really feel that. And yes, that was the beginning of my experience. Then my exposure in the wine industry increased when I was named in the 2019 Best Italian Sommelier by my association, FISAR, the Sommelier Association. And at the end of 2022, there was this opportunity at the Consorzio Brunello that they were looking for somebody for, lead the marketing and promotion communication activities there. And yes, that's the beginning of my experience at the Consorzio. So my career bridges both technical but also communication, and the fact that I worked across production, hospitality, and marketing allowed me to understand much better the critical points of the wine industry and how to bring a strategic storytelling to promote the denomination globally.
I think that's very interesting because it's very hard nowadays. Sometimes people are very good at winemaking, or some people are just good sommeliers, but to be able to bridge in between and to be able to communicate, sometimes it's, I think, the combination you have, it's amazing to be able to understand the consumer, to understand the winemaking, and to be able to communicate better is such a great thing. And I'm glad to hear that, and it's really impressive. And to move on, I would like to know just briefly to our listeners to maybe describe a bit the wines of Montalcino, but you don't have to go into very technical details, mostly about the differences between the Rosso and the Brunello, so that we can all be on the same page.
Absolutely, Mihai. I'd be happy to share some insights about Montalcino and the territory. First of all, Montalcino is home to one of Italy's most iconic grape varieties, the Sangiovese. And Sangiovese is the only grape variety allowed in both Brunello and Rosso di Montalcino. The denomination of Brunello di Montalcino, despite its concentration, because we are talking about 2,100 hectares registered as Brunello and roughly 860 hectares registered as Rosso. So it's a quite limited area if you compare it with other wine regions. If you think that Chianti Classico is 7,000 hectares. So it's a very limited area, but within the denomination, there is so much diversity. As I, explained in the seminar that you attended with the Vinitaly International Academy, it was interesting to look at the map, the 3D video that we made, that there is a huge difference in terms of altitude, because we're ranging from 250 meters above sea level up to 600 meters in the Passo del Lume Spento, or on top of the village of Montalcino. We are at 564 meters. So a huge difference across the denomination, north to south and east to west. You have to imagine Montalcino almost like a pyramid, let's say. So on top, there's the village, and there are the four main slopes, I would say: northeast, northwest, southeast, and southwest. And across the denomination, the diversity is described also by the origin of the soils and the aspects. So, how the vineyards are oriented across the appellation. And all these factors have an important influence in the style of wines that are made and the stylistic choices among the producers. That's the fascinating thing about Montalcino, because it's all about Sangiovese. And what makes the region special is how this grape expresses itself in a huge diversity within the appellation, from, the Brunello di Montalcino, that, of course, due to the aging requirements, production regulations must be aged 5 years. So it has to be released at the fifth year following harvest, and at the sixth year for the Reserva. So the current release right now is the 2020 for Brunello di Montalcino and 2019 for the Brunello di Montalcino Reserva. From the powerful age-worthy Brunello to the fresher and more immediate style of Rosso, let's say contemporary style of a Sangiovese, because due to the production regulations, Rosso can be released the next year of the harvest at September. So right now we are enjoying the 2023 current release, and in September we will see the new vintage 2024. So if you think about that, this is just one grape variety, but you have, an enormous amount of diversity within the wines and the producers. So it's really fascinating on how Sangiovese is shaping within the appellation.
And I got the chance last year to witness and to experience this diversity. And I can say there is so much diversity between producers, winemaking styles, altitudes, and you can taste it in the wines and the difference between the Rosso and the Brunello. As you said, the Rosso might be more approachable in youth, more refreshing, more fruity. And it leads to the next question that I'm going to ask you. The Rosso di Montalcino nowadays is gaining a lot of traction globally, and even here on the Canadian market, even the buyers for the monopoly are actively looking for Rosso di Montalcino to have in their portfolio. Are producers embracing this as a long term opportunity or just responding to current marketing trends? Because as we know, we like lighter reds nowadays. We seem to try to avoid the super oaked or longer aged red wines, which is not always the case for Brunello. I will like some producer make it very, very elegant. But do you think it's the answer of the producers to get to this opportunity with the Rosso?
Yes, I would say that Rosso di Montalcino right now is no longer seen as a second wine within the appellation and also in the market. I believe it's a modern expression of Montalcino as it can offer accessibility, freshness, and also typicity. Because what makes the Sangiovese really special is that is able to maintain a sense of place no matter what kind of winemaking techniques you use. You don't need to perform winemaking techniques to enhance the characteristics of the grape variety because Sangiovese is able to be really attached to the terroir of a region. You know what I mean? So it's almost like when you go in Piedmont and you taste Nebbiolo and you are able to determine the differences between, a Barolo from Serra Lunga or another one from La Morra, So Sangiovese has this really characteristic, is able to maintain a sense of place. And this is really important also in the Rosso di Montalcino. And also the producers, I believe, they recognize its value and are increasingly investing in the Rosso di Montalcino as a standalone product. We have also an event which is dedicated to the Rosso di Montalcino, and I believe Rosso it's an amazing wine to attract consumers and is also an interesting tool as a contemporary wine, considering also the market trends at the moment.
The market and the weather, like for example here in Canada, we like to drink a lot of red wines in the winter, but now it's getting warmer and warmer in the summer, so we're moving slowly towards a different type of lighter reds. And I think, in my opinion, Rosso is a good wine for summer, especially served a bit chilled. It's fruitier, it's easier to understand, and it pairs very well with a lot of dishes. So how do you guys market this freshness when you think of marketing campaigns, or how do you support producers into better communicating this about the product?
One of the aim of the consortium is to promote, and the main one, to promote the appellation, to protect and represent the producers through different actions. As we organize events, tastings, and training programs globally, and we work, of course, to preserve the quality and the identity of the appellation. The producers are supported through different actions. It could be through participation to events, wine fairs, but at the same time through training programs and educational activities, which even it seems that there is not a direct involvement of the producers because through the educational activities, you don't need the producers to attend, but you kind of showcase the products. But it's actually a good way to showcase the wineries, and the wineries at the same time they can get the benefit of the exposure to that audience. And you can really work on the branding positioning and on the credibility, on the reputation. So even if it doesn't seem that there is a direct advantage of the producer to send the wines through educational activities, is actually really important to build the reputation on long terms. So yeah, it's important to have both of the activities. So activities that could involve directly producers and activities where also the consortium can play a role in more branding and building reputation and credibility.
I definitely agree with you because it's very, very important. It all starts by training, by doing this all these educational initiatives, because that's the way to spread the word. In the end, if you educate people about the product, they will get interested in it. And for us, like ambassadors, I think it's very important to learn more about this region. And if we have access to the right information and to the right background, we're going to be able to communicate better with the consumers and to be able to promote the wines and to do tastings and such on. And last year, when I attended Benvenuto Brunello, you were talking and other people from the consortium about the new vintage rating system, and it created some buzz. And I was curious to know what prompted the change and how has it been received worldwide, this new vintage rating system.
Yes, it was at the time that we were still working on the when I was at the seminar in Verona, and later at Benvenuto Brunello, we finally presented the new vintage evaluation method, Brunello Forma. And this was really a big change for the denomination, as we were coming from a star rating system, so a more quantitative approach. So now that we felt that there was a need for a more transparent, contemporary approach tailored to Sangiovese. So we are talking about something which is built specific to Sangiovese and a unique and distinctive model for Montalcino. Really important also for the producers, because they are able to, to better understand the vintage characteristics through weather data collection and the comparison of those weather data with the tasting panel evaluation. So we are crossing actually climatic, agronomic data, weather data with sensory analysis, which is something really innovative also in the communication that provide a statement, a final statement that the consortia release that for the vintage 2020 has been captivating, succulent and bright vintage. And it's really important also for the stakeholders, press, trade to have not a judgmental statement, but it has to provide how the vintage has been overall. So, for those people who are more interested in looking at the data, there is, of course, in the final statement, all the characteristics of the vintage in terms of wine growing season, temperature, rainfall average, everything you need from that point of view. And at the same time, you have the sensory analysis released by the tasting panel. And so far, from what I've heard, feedback has been very positive from producers, journalists, and trade.
And I think it's even easier for the consumer to understand it, especially if it's put in words. Like when you mentioned the description of the 2020, it sounded very interesting for the consumer perspective. And if consumers or wine professionals would like to learn more about the vintage rating system, do we find it on the Consorzio website or do you guys send it out?
Yes, absolutely. And we are also developing some more materials related to the Brunello Forma, because I would say that the first year when we released Brunello Forma, which was last year in 2024 for the Benvenuto Brunello, that was, let's say, a transitional period, because the 2020 vintage of Brunello di Montalcino, which was at the Benvenuto Brunello, and was, part of this new evaluation method, already received the star rating system, was a vintage rated as 5 stars. So it was a transitional period in this way. Let's say that this method was, to support the evidence of the previous rating system. And we are going through the 2021 vintage, which will be released officially at the Benvenuto Brunello this year, where the new rating system, the new evaluation method, the Brunello Forma, will be the official one, standalone.
That's great to hear, and we'll keep an eye on all the news from the rating, and I'm looking forward to know what's the 21 vintage going to look like. So now I'm gonna take you on a bit about the trade and the exports, and I would like to know how does the Montalcino or the Consorzio or the region balance the, we know it's a prestigious wine, and how do you balance this, the prestige and accessibility in global markets, especially now that we know there's so much stress and price stress and costs that are and tariffs. How do you think the producers or what strategies are you having to keep it as a prestigious wine, but also to have it somehow accessible in the global markets?
Yes, it's a really challenging question, especially in these particular times that we are facing a bit of changes also in the wine industry, also concerns among the producers and also among the stakeholders. But generally, we aim to preserve the heritage and the prestige of Brunello di Montalcino, but we want to remain open and engaging at the same time. It's really important to don't look, close to outside. And the Brunello remains, of course, the flagship wine of the denomination, while Rosso di Montalcino is really helpful for us to reach new audiences. So it's really important to find a good compromise between, offering wines with identity and quality, but also keeping the relevance and the importance of the appellation. Of course, this is made through different initiatives and actions through our main markets, let's say, that, as you may know, our top markets include the US, Canada, UK, Northern Europe. We are very well represented across these states. And we also see some growing interest in Asia. And during these uncertain times, the strong relationships and consistent communication, well targeted strategies are really essential to face this uncertain situations from the market point of view, I would say.
And out of my experience, I think during uncertain times like this, there could be opportunity because I find the consumers are going back to classics instead of trying to experiment with new regions. And I think Brunello is a classic. And I think because people trust the brand, trust the name, trust the region, I think they are ready to still spend money on it. What's on your take on that? Do you see that there's people? I think mostly the confidence and the quality of the product plays a big role as being one of the big classics of the wines.
Yeah, you are right, Mihai. And I totally agree that it's really important in these times to be consistent. First of all, because by consistency, you help to maintain your reputation, credibility, and of course, you build loyalty with consumers, with trade, also with press, because the consortium plays across the different segments. So it's really important in these times to be consistent through different kind of strategies, but also to be also in the storytelling through education and experiences that can go beyond the label. I think that digital is also helping in this way. Before I worked there at the consortio was something that wasn't really, paying that much attention. But right now, even for this situation, building strategies also through digital is really important. And as you are seeing, because you also are on social media, you know how this thing works. So it's really important through the storytelling to reach also that kind of consumer, especially the younger consumer and the younger generations.
I think it's really important to use all the technology available to us. And even you guys came up with the 3D map, which I saw it was going on social media. And I think it's so helpful to understand the region because our generation and the younger one, we're so visual. And you guys have nice drone shots of the Montalcino. And I think it's something that once we see it and have it access to it is going to give the curiosity for younger consumers to try these wines because if we have the right information available and the right digital presence, my personal opinion, it's what is going to make you interact with the younger generation. But do you have any other strategies to attract younger consumers, like events or combine it with music and food festivals, something like that?
Yes, of course. We are working across different actions through, of course, digital, but also, so it means, yeah, let's say online and offline, because one of the next goal is to, of course, meet younger audiences through storytelling, education, and experiences. Events like Red Montalcino, that are, the event who's dedicated to the Rosso di Montalcino, is really important to reach this young audience and to engage with them and to make them more involved also with the Rosso di Montalcino, because those could be the potential new consumers for the Brunello. And Red Montalcino is the event dedicated to the Rosso. The location is in the fortress of Montalcino. It's younger, more dynamic, and highlights the contemporary side of the region. But at the same time, we organize also some press activities, so activities a little bit more, for bringing some more insights for the Rosso di Montalcino. This year we did really amazing masterclass with Sarah Heller, MW, that you know, and speaking about the contemporary style of the Rosso. And we did a flight of 10 wines, 10 Rosso di Montalcino across different vintages and different producers. And it was nice to, how the wines were showcased through identity, the stylistic choices of the producers, and how the wines were communicated also in a different way, not too technical, but also keeping, of course, an eye through the history and the style of the producers.
And I think it's great because you need to combine also the history, and I think that's what attracts a lot of consumers to a classic region. And it's also a lot of traveling, and we all know Italy, it's a big destination for Canadians, from people from the United States. For the younger generation, I think they like to travel a lot to Italy, and events such as especially Red Montalcino, if they would know about it, I think they would be very interested to attend, especially while visiting and doing other activities. And also, I saw recently on social media you were doing also events with a group of sommeliers from here, from Canada. So, do you think also in the future you might do some events internationally or just locally?
I was going to say that, it's really important to work also on international events. We did a beautiful event in New York on February this year, and we would love to work also on something like that on the next year. And also, priority markets, as I mentioned, are US, Canada, UK. And of course, we want to always bring something new also in terms of event formats, and bringing also some kind of mix between walk around tastings and like a informal lunch, or something that you can do kind of networking. You don't need necessarily, to be focused in just to one format. But I would say that right now the events, have to combine a little bit of everything. So it's really important to have a deep experience also in the wines of Montalcino. So that's why it's really important to give some sort of highlight of everything, and the different formats can be helpful for achieving that.
Yes, I think nowadays we need to be creative, and we need to create events where the consumers feel comfortable to attend. It's not a snobby activity, and people feel welcome and they can easily understand about wines. And for my last part, because I know you're a busy, very busy wine professional, I'm not going to keep you much longer. I just have a question for tourists that and wine lover, wine geeks that are going to travel to Tuscany and to Montalcino this summer. Tell me five your favorite activities to do around the town.
Wow, only five. That's a really hard question, but I will try to be synthetic. So, five things I would say that, as first, of course, you need to taste Brunello while you are in Montalcino, and I think the experience becomes even more beautiful when you taste a Brunello in a really historical cellar or in a vineyard, I would say. Second one, I would suggest while you are in Montalcino to have a walk in the fortress, along the walls of the fortress, and take the opportunity to do that at the sunset, because it's going to be beautiful, the view from there. Third one, I would say to discover the local cuisine of Montalcino. My favorite dish is pinci. Pinci, it's a kind of pasta, looks like spaghetti, but thicker, handmade, of course, with pinci cacio e pepe, with pecorino and pepper. My favorite one. And next, fourth one, I would say to go in Castelnuovo dell'Abate and visit the Abbey of Sant'Antimo. It's a beautiful, beautiful abbey. And from there, you can enjoy the view also of the vineyards and Castelnuovo dell'Abate. Last but not least, you can knock the door of the Consorzio office and come to say hello to me and to share a nice glass of Brunello together.
That sounds amazing. I actually got hungry just listening and remembering how delicious the pinchi is. Just wanted to thank you for your time for today, for answering some of the questions. I know we don't have time to answer all of the questions, but yeah, it gives us a oversight of the Montalcino region, the wines, and yes, I wish you good luck. Keep doing these amazing events, and not just locally but internationally. And hope to see you soon. And grazie mille.
Thank you so much, Mihai. It's such a great pleasure to be here and hope to see you soon in Montalcino. Thank you.
Thank you, and have a great weekend and afternoon.
Okay, and let me step in here. Thank you, Mihai, again for inviting Carlotta and for having such a great interview and such great questions. As I already mentioned before, Carlotta, she is a very inspiring person, and I listened to some of her master classes during Vinitaly, and she is a great presenter. I want to say that again. And the conversation was really interesting to listen. And I have a question for Carlotta as well. Could you please tell us? So, you already mentioned some of the events that were already held in North America. And till the end of this year, are you planning participating in any other upcoming events? When and where?
Thank you, Rosa. Thanks so much for your kind words. And yes, right now we are currently working on the next Benvenuto Brunello, which will take place in Montalcino. Benvenuto Brunello is our legacy event, I would say, a preview of the new vintage. We will present the 2021 vintage Brunello di Montalcino. And is an event comprises two parts. One is strictly for selected press, and other 2 days are dedicated for trade, and also consumers can attend through the purchase of tickets. Trade can basically attend through registration form, and will be held in Montalcino from November 20th up to the 24th November. So it's going to be full 4 days of tastings for the press. It's going to be a seated tastings with no producers for the first 2 days, and the other days are with walk around tasting formats where the producers attend and the trade can, interact and engage with the producers. So it's an amazing event for Montalcino. I would recommend to attend whether you are a sommelier, a wine lover, a wine journalist. It's really a great opportunity to be there and to have a first sip of the preview of the new vintage 2021 Brunello.
Okay, and any upcoming events internationally? Like you already mentioned North America, any events in Asia maybe?
We are working for some events in Asia, not for this year, but we are working to plan something for the next year in Asia. What will be next by the end of this year is the Accademia Brunello, but it's an incoming project actually. It's one of the flagship programs for training and educational program, bringing sommeliers and buyers from around the world to Montalcino. This year, we're going to host a group of Canadians and Americans, both sommeliers and also some of them from retail sectors as well. It's a great opportunity to understand the regions. It's a full 5 days deep of discovering the regions and, through seminars and visits to the wineries. It's a great opportunity to have a highlight of Montalcino and to discover the wines of the region.
That sounds great. And is there an application process to participate in that event, or the consortio itself sends the invitations to the professionals?
It's both. Of course, it could be through free applications that anyone can send, and it's just about a letter of reference and CV presentation. But also, we are working also through invitation that we, select carefully the people that we think that they could be the future ambassadors of the regions. But we are always we are more than welcome to receive applications, because it's really important also for us to expand our network beyond our connections.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for answering my questions too. And sorry, Mihai, that I stepped in with my questions too. And it's almost time for us to wrap it up. So I wanted to thank you again, Mihai and Carlotta, for a very interesting conversation, and also for your time, because both of you, you're very busy, but this conversation was totally worth it, I think. And for our listeners, for those of you who are interested to participate, you can just send us the direct message through our Instagram, or you can send us an email at info@italianwinepodcast.com. So it's time to wrap up. Thank you again, guys.
Again,
Thank
thank
you.
you so much.
Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Rosa. Thank you, Mihai. Bye
Thank
bye.
you. Bye
Thank
bye.
you.
Ciao. Bye.
Ciao. Ciao.
Have a nice day.
Listen to the Italian Wine Podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We're on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Himalaya FM, and more. Don't forget to subscribe and rate the show. If you enjoy listening, please consider donating through ItalianWinePodcast.com. Any amount helps cover equipment, production, and publication costs. Until next time, cin cin.